Now let's get to Ron Paul and Social Security. Ron Paul believes that Social Security is unconstitutional because it's stealing your money for the government to use as it sees fit, and that for the people paying it today, it simply won't be there tomorrow. People should be able to opt out, and if they're old and haven't saved, people will take care of them. Better than our government will, for sure. Either way, it's the only way, because the money will not be there in the future. I'm going to let Ron Paul explain this also. He does it so well. And I'm also going to take this as an opportunity to show you something this guy does every week. He speaks the truth. I mean, talk about a transparent administration. He keeps America well informed and assured that they are getting the whole story. Something Obama promised, and most certainly, like many other promises he made, has done the exact opposite. Be rest assured, you will not get this from any other candidate.
Oh, this is Ron Paul with your weekly update for December 27th. Perhaps the biggest media story of 2010 was the influence of Tea Party voters on the congressional landscape. The new Congress comes to Capitol Hill with a mandate to end profligate spending and restore fiscal sanity in Washington, we are told. But when the House and Senate convene in January, the newly elected members will face tremendous pressure to maintain spending levels for entitlement programs. Even the most modest proposals to trim Social Security or Medicare spending will be met with howls of indignation and threats of voter revolt. Legislators who propose any kind of means testing or increased retirement ages can expect angry visits from senior citizen lobbyists ready to fund a candidate back home who support the status quo. But millions of Americans now realize that the status quo is an illusion that will not last even another 10 or 20 years. The federal government cannot continue to spend $1 trillion more than it collects in revenue each year because we are running out of creditors. Fiscal reality is setting in, and the consequences may be grim even if Congress finds the courage to take decisive action now. Courage begins with a commitment to see things as they are rather than how we wish they were. When it comes to Social Security, we must understand that the system does not represent an old age pension, an insurance program, or even a forced savings program. It simply represents an enormous transfer payment with younger workers paying taxes to benefit the other beneficiaries. There is no Social Security trust fund, and you don't have an account. Whether you win or lose the Social Security lottery is a function of when you happen to be born and how long you live to collect benefits. Of course, young people today have every reason to believe they will never collect those benefits. Notice that neither political party proposes letting people opt out of Social Security, which exposes the lie that your contributions are set aside and saved. After all, if your contributions really are put aside for your retirement, the money is there earning interest, right? If your money is in your account, what difference would it make if your neighbor chooses not to participate in the program? The truth, of course, is that your contributions are not put aside. Social Security is a simple tax. Like all taxes, the money collected is spent immediately as general revenue to fund the federal government. But no administration will admit that Social Security is nothing more than an accounting ledger with no money. You will collect benefits only if future tax revenues remain high. The money you paid into the system is long gone. My hope is that at least some members of the new Congress will cut through the distortions to see Social Security as it really is. The best way to fix the impending Social Security crisis is also the simplest. Allow younger individuals to opt out of the program and use their tax savings to invest privately as they see fit. This is the true private solution. Your money has never been safe in the government's hands, and it never will be. Thank you for calling this update at 888-322-1414. A new update is available every Monday, and the text is archived at www.house.gov/Paul under the heading Texas Straight Talk. Thanks for calling.
Fact. Ron Paul is undyingly consistent.
Protect our freedoms, have a strong national defense, look and take care of our borders, have a sound currency.
You will see the consequence of the inflation that we have today. In a couple years, you will see the recession, if not the depression.
Millions of tax dollars are spent on this type of computer surveillance, a disgusting procedure for a professed free society.
And we believe the role of government ought to be for the preservation of liberty. Being patriotic and being American and being pro-constitutional might mean that you don't have to go and become a police state.
I mean, we're very confident that the message of liberty is what the Americans want to hear. I think it's another example of a flawed foreign policy that we have followed for a good many decades. It now finds its way into the rapidly expanding real estate bubble. But the fact that we owe this to Afghanistan, you know what we owe? We owe a responsibility to the American taxpayer. Our new relationship with Gaddafi in Libya is an example of the silliness of this policy. That is the reason that the dollar becomes less valuable, because we just print too many to accommodate.
We don't go to war like we did in Vietnam and Korea, because the wars never end.
If you understand liberty and realize it's the only humanitarian system, once again, able to say that I am a candidate for the presidency in the Republican Party primary.
Ron Paul believes in the words of Thomas Jefferson, who also said, "Commerce with all nations, alliance with none should be our motto." Ron Paul does not necessarily trust the UN. And as strange as that may sound, neither do I. The United Nations was designed in 1945 by U.S. bankers and State Department planners. And though it was sold to the public after the previous two wars to prevent further world wars and to remain a free association of sovereign nation states, it is quickly becoming what it was intended to become, the foundation for the New World Order. Bush Sr. so openly talked about before he realized the idea of Americans losing their constitutional rights and sovereignty was not something that he could twist around to make it appealing to the American public. But just because he stopped talking about it doesn't mean that the bankers' plan for a one-world government ever went anywhere. And it is being implemented now more than ever before. The downfall of the U.S. economy is by no mistake, and the Fed, the C.F.R., the UN do not want it fixed. The mess we're in now with the UN and many other entanglements is something to be very afraid of. These people want us to join them and do as we're told, and we're doing that. Not for the interest of the U.S., but for the interest of the UN, and it's ruining our economy. There's a lot coming up that will justify what I just said. Now, finally winding down on the Ron Paul section, here is a short excerpt from an interview he did for Google on his foreign policy, followed by a speech he wrote for Congress.
I think Vietnam is an example of what can happen if you follow the advice of the founders and follow the Constitution. Only constitutional wars, don't get involved, and leave. We left under terrible circumstances. I was drafted in '63 and stayed in for 5 years, and it was a terrible, terrible war to be associated with. I didn't have to go to Vietnam, but we left. 60,000 men died, and we left, and all of a sudden we started talking to Vietnam. And we trade with Vietnam. The president of Vietnam comes here, fulfills the predictions and the advice of the founders. Said, talk with people, trade with people, engage yourself, travel, but don't get involved in their entangling alliances with them, and don't get involved in their internal affairs. Don't be a nation builder, and don't police the world. The American empire is going to fail. It is in the process of failing, and I just want to get out of that empire building smoothly rather than waiting for a catastrophic event like a bankruptcy of this country. And the dollar's weak. It's weak because we spend huge amounts of money for war and welfare. And it's unsustainable. And I think that's one of the reasons that the younger generation is very attracted to this philosophy, is that they have become aware that the great burdens are it's the Social Security system or the abusive government is coming down that's going to invade our that we're getting rid of habeas corpus. Young people are realizing this, and they understand the finances. And actually, it has been a great booster to the campaign because of the young people.
I'm sorry. You sort of mentioned the concept of foreign entanglements, sort of George Washington's reference when he was departing his presidency. Clearly, that's part of the constitutionalist philosophy. Your attitude towards doing business with other countries, China, the Middle East, the Paul administration is leave them be, let them get their own houses in order. And what should the tenor of U.S. relationships be in the international?
Well, we should permit it. Trade as fast as possible and evenly as possible. I want low tariffs. Tariffs are taxes, and it doesn't tax the wealthy. It taxes the poor person who would like to buy cheap products.
So why were you opposed to NAFTA? Why was the hand so high?
Because it's government management of trade for this special interest. It's not really free trade. There are more requests from our government to NAFTA to raise tariffs. We want protectionism. If you're a big corporation, you might get some protection from that, where free trade is different. In Washington, you have managed international trade under the UN NAFTA type ban or WTO, which is just bigger government like that. Or you have the protectionist that says that no, we shouldn't trade, high tariffs, and punish the consumer by making them pay higher prices for their products.
So I have to ask, I've asked other people